have mercy, look at how the time goes.
And welcome everybody to the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. I am your host, John Allen, and today I have Miss Lisa Mansfield. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Little tired. There's been a lot going on. I've been talking to a lot of people in a lot of different places. It's a little bit crazy out there, as you see. Anybody watching the news, anybody who's online, they know the situation back home in the States. You're sitting there at home in Akron, Ohio. How are things? Yes. How are things there?
The last 2 days have been pretty quiet. The only protests we had here that turned a little were on Saturday night, and since then everything has been peaceful. There's a park that's about a mile and a half from my house, and there was a very peaceful protest there on Sunday. But the sad part is the protests even on Saturday, the peaceful part lasted six and a half hours and went 15 miles, and no one had not so much as a push or a shove. And when it got dark, it got a little bad, and some windows got broken downtown, and some graffiti got sprawled.
Now, is that the protest where I heard I saw online they were talking about there was some looting at Chapel Hill Mall? Is that the same protest?
No, that was different. That was Monday. And that was kind of a hit. It was a planned hit on a jewelry store that got kind of labeled as looting, and it really sounded like they had planned this. The mall is not in high, let's say, occupancy right now.
It's a little dead there, from what I understand.
Yeah, and that was my mall, so I don't like to think about that. But so apparently this was planned. There was like a U-Haul involved, and so that got labeled as looting, and all the stores around shut down. Okay. But it was not. It was planned like a smash and grab kind of deal.
Okay. I have to tell you, most of my listeners know that I'm born and raised in Ohio, specifically Norton. I was born in Akron, but raised in Norton, and we always used to go to Chapel Hill Mall. That was my mother's mall of choice at the time, and the snowman. What was it? Archie.
Oh, Archie.
Yeah.
Archie. People ask about Archie. That was one of the first things people asked after this incident happened. Was Archie okay? Archie was okay.
So Archie, that poor guy. Now I think you have a very interesting line of work. You have two lines of work that you're in. Two lines of work that bring you in very close contact with the local environment, with the local society there. Can you tell me a little bit about, and pick whichever one you want to start with first, whichever line of work that you're in.
Well, I call it my day job, the job that pays the bills. The one that I do for a living is I work for the Summit County Probate Court. I'm the community relations person there. It's community outreach specialist. So I set up all the communications between the judge and the community, as well as getting her out there, as well as trying to communicate what the probate court does. I've been there for about 3 years, and before that I was in the arts. So I also get to bring art to the courthouse, which is amazing, because I believe that art has a transformative power to it, as far as it takes you out of your own head for a while and can give you respite. So I have that as part of my job as well. I work for an amazing judge, and she's very focused on making people feel comfortable. So love that.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then, because probate's a whole different ballgame. We could talk about that a little bit too. And then my second job is I've been an elected member of the school board in Akron for, 11 years. Yeah, 11. So 11
that's
and a half almost.
That's two very important lines of work that you're in. Now, if we look at your work in the probate court, how important? I mean, I know it's very important what you do, as far as having that close contact with the public so that they understand what the probate court is all about. Because at times I would imagine there can be a little bit of distrust between the local population and the court system. What do you do? What do you do to fix that?
So because probate court is more of a service court, right? We're the court of beginnings and ends. So we handle everything from adoptions and marriage licenses in the state of Ohio to guardianships and estates. So it can be the most joyful time of your life or one of the most sorrowful times of your life when you come to us. So trying to make people, and there's always, if you go to seminars or things, they'll say, well, you should avoid probate at all costs, blah, blah, blah. Probate used to cost a lot of money. There was a state tax that went to the federal and state governments. That doesn't exist in the state of Ohio anymore. And at the federal level, unless you have $11.5 million, which I haven't met that person yet. I know they're out there, but I haven't met
I've heard of that guy.
I've heard of him, but they're not, I haven't run into him on the streets. Yeah, that's right. Then you don't have to pay any estate tax. So there used to be real hard reasons and facts. But again, mostly it's because people are coming when they're in a time of either joy or crisis.
It's kind of like police officers. Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of like police officers or maybe emergency care nurses who they see people at their worst moment. And
it can be. Yeah,
because
we also have a mental health component too. So it can be some tough times for folks when they're coming to see us. It may not. Anytime you're in the courthouse, that's what makes writing the grants that I write for art fairly flow out of my system, right? Because it's you're not there because you want to be usually in the courthouse. You're
thinking about divorces. Thinking about divorces or death in the family, and then there's an estate that has to be,
Right. Or if you're in the courthouse, period, right, you're probably either a victim or a victim's family member or maybe a perpetrator's family member. There's a reason that you're there, or you're called to jury duty. I mean, have you ever seen anybody run around like they won the lottery because they got called to jury duty? People, it's not it's not their dream day to be in the courthouse. And we work there every day and have to have a caring, loving attitude. So, it can be a challenge, but that's one of my main jobs right now is to make sure that not only can we help people to avoid coming if they can, but also if they are going to be there, so there's less fear. So that's a lot of what I get to do.
So a community outreach specialist, then, can that be interpreted as a spokesperson for probate court or as a publicist for? I mean, you're trying to show people. Yeah, let's get down into the detail level. What's a typical day at work for you? What do you? Well, I'm sure there is no typical day, but give an example.
No, there isn't.
Give an example of a day.
I love that part.
Yeah.
Well, my judge needs no spokesperson. She's been a judge for 28 years, and she is she's one of the best speakers I've ever seen, and I've seen her speak probably more than anyone. I counted up not too long ago how many times I've heard her probate speech talk, and I think it's like over 100 times. Wow. She doesn't have a stitch of notes. She doesn't have anything. She doesn't need, it just flows right out of her. So
can you tell me her name again? I didn't quite hear that.
It's Judge Eleanor Stormer.
Eleanor Stormer. Okay.
Eleanor Marshall. Yes, she's been in muni court, she's been in common pleas, and now she's the probate court judge. So, fortunately, that part makes my life easy. She doesn't need me to speak for her ever. She can speak very well for herself. But I do the public. I try to take and do the press releases. I do community projects. I'm in the middle of one right now, collecting cards for seniors that are in nursing care and congregate care across Summit County, because they've been locked down for 2 months. and can't see their families. So we decided we'd supplement how hard their staff is working to make them happy by having the community make cards that we could sort and take in. So we have delivered about 2,000 cards so far in the last few weeks, and I've got about another 2,000 to go out.
I'm just sitting here smiling. I'm just sitting here smiling as you say that, because that is such a beautiful and considerate thing to do. Yeah, think about these elderly people that are sitting in the hospitals or lying in the hospitals, and some of them are even dying alone.
Yeah, you can't hardly think about it. You just wouldn't be able to function if you think too hard about it.
Yeah.
It's so sad. And then you've got plenty of fairly healthy, right? They're in assisted living, independent living, or in nursing home care, right? With incredible caregivers who are sacrificing a lot during all of this. But they're used to seeing their family once a week or a couple times a week or sometimes every day. And now that's just gone. And it's been very, very hard. Isolation of seniors is something we deal with and talk about all the time, because being isolated is detrimental to your health. Being isolated.
No, I'm sorry.
Really
go ahead.
Hard on you.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's just that there's a little. It's just that there's a little bit of a lag in the sound, and it's a little bit choppy.
Sorry.
But don't apologize. It's probably just the internet connection. So sometimes when I think you've stopped talking, you haven't. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Let me just ask a question here. Now, doing that kind of work and stepping in to help elderly people who are sitting in the hospital or in senior citizens' homes, that's a great thing. But why you? How does that tie into the probate system? Because I wouldn't think that would be something that you do in that position that you have. Help me to understand that connection there, please.
Sure. So we do a lot with nursing home and congregate care, because the probate court is superior guardian of a lot of people who are in those care.
I see.
Care. So there are, oh gosh, I think there's about 2,700 or so that are under our care. It's over 2,000. Either they're developmentally disabled or they are elderly. So we are their superior guardian. A lot of them have other guardians as well that help make decisions for them, but we are the ones who oversee them to make sure that, their money is being spent correctly, they're getting all the care that they need. If they need new socks, they're getting new socks, those kind of things.
I see.
And a lot of those folks are in that kind of care. So we are in and out of the nursing homes. And when I say we, I mean our court investigators, who are angels. They're social workers who they approve all the adoptions. They also oversee all the guardianships in the county. They're hard workers. They each have about 700 people on their caseload.
So the probate court in many cases is responsible. They're the guardians of some of these people who are okay. I understand. You have to remember, or I have to remember, I guess I've been out of the States for almost 20 years now. So the ins and outs of the court system, some of that stuff I have forgotten. And this is a former police officer talking, and yet I've forgotten some of the things about how it works over there. So
and the other piece is that can vary by state. And definitely even vary by county as to which court handles that. Okay. So in Ohio, it's probate that handles the guardianships, I think, pretty exclusively. Okay. But by county, it can be spread into all kinds of different ways. See,
I guess in that sense, things are so much simpler here in Norway, because the court system, the police force, it's national. There are no police. Okay. There are no police departments. If you could just imagine the FBI being the police everywhere in the States, and there's no such thing as county police or sheriff's office and all that kind of stuff. It's one police department. So I guess things are kind of more streamlined in that sense over here. So I guess it's kind of a reminder of how things actually are so different here in Norway.
very localized. We're very, very local control on a lot of things, actually.
I would imagine that gives you a certain level of pride in your job, because you are serving the people that are right there in that county with you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing to me, having lived here my whole life, the nooks and crannies of the county that I've been able to get to know in the last 3 years. And there's some amazing people. You talk about this card project. I've been telling the judge for about a month now that I have the best job on the planet, because not only have I gotten to take these cards once they come in, but I've gotten to interact with the folks on the phone who, how can I drop it off, and how can I do more, and what do you need? And
so you are actually hands-on. You're actually hands-on with the delivering of these cards.
I deliver them to the nursing home. Right now, you can't go in.
Okay.
So I deliver them to the front desk, but just, even getting to see, watch the nursing home staff who's at the front gate, the front doors, who when you first come in, they're kind of suspicious. And what do you want? And what do you need? And are we going to let her in? Yeah. And then when they find out while you're there, watching their whole attitude change is...
it must be such a satisfying thing to do. If that was the only thing you did in your job, that would be...
Oh, I would love it.
Well,
I love that every day.
Yeah, you can't have, there's not enough jobs like that are directly bringing joy and comfort and happiness to people. I mean, that sounds kind of chumpy and cliche, but it's the truth. I mean, that's just a beautiful thing that you're doing.
Yeah, it's been a lovely month, especially, while everything's been so hard for all of us. It's been, I've just met amazing people, and the artistry of some of these cards. We're actually going to do an art show after this is all over called The Art of a Pandemic, in the courthouse, showing off some of the artists that we've discovered during this, because beautiful watercolors and, handcrafted things that we're gonna let them show off.
Now, how much?
Thank you.
How much influence or how much control do you have over these type of things? Is this art project your idea? Are you the one that's running it, or
that was the judge's idea? Absolutely, It was. She took one look at the art and said, "We're turning this into a show."
So this is a judge that is more than a judge. This is a judge who is also a social worker. This is a judge who seems to be somewhat of an I don't know, activist. Can we say that? I mean, she's involved in...
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
She's a strong believer in mental health and a strong believer in... she started some of the best mental health and drug courts in the county. And our mental health court that we have was the first in Ohio.
Really?
To help people with serious mental illness. To have a way to check in, because they would just be released from the hospital with no one to check up on them except their social worker. And what the judge does is she checks in with them every 2 weeks. How are things going? And people say, well, it's just the black robe effect that they're behaving. But what we find is that she builds a relationship with them where not only do they want to make her happy, right? Because they come before her and but they're listened to. I watched her one time listen to one of the patients who came in who had just been released and was talking about their medication and said, I don't feel good when I take it. It makes me feel like this and this and this. And she listened and she turned to their caseworker and said, have you talked to the doctor about this? What can we do to fix this? And watching the person who had been telling her this, watching thear whole demeanor change because somebody heard them.
Somebody's listening. Yeah. I had a previous podcast about a little bit different subject, but that whole thing about being heard, that whole thing about if you may not be in that situation, you may not understand that situation, but if you listen, you might learn something, you might find a way to contribute.
Yeah.
So that you have a judge who is out there kind of using her platform to make people listen, or at least to show people, what's going on and bring some awareness to a few things. That to me, that's just that's a judge who's doing it right. A lot of people have this image of the court system and of a judge that, they're just slamming that gavel and sentencing people. But it's so much more than that. It's so much more than that.
Well, and I get blessed too by the fact that she's been a judge for a long time. So I can tell you that before all the COVID shutdown, probably once a month, if not once every 6 weeks, someone will wander into our court and ask if she's there. Yeah. And, often she'll come out, but other times she might be in a hearing and they'll say, well, just tell her that Justine was here and she changed my life. And I wanted to tell her what I'm doing now. And that literally happens at least once a month or every 6 weeks.
That's beautiful.
And it's wonderful. Yeah. And we're talking about because she listened to them, or because she was tough on them when they were 20, or because she, got them away from a bad situation. And, some of these folks are coming in with their grandchildren, are getting married are getting their marriage license. And they just came over to say, thank you.
See, now that's what is so interesting about your job there. When I was talking to you last week when we first talked, that you are a conduit. You're right there in that revolving door of communication. And the judge, Judge Stormer, is in this revolving door of communication and influence. She is out there making people listen, or at least opening the door for people to listen and shine a light on different issues, and vice versa. Other people are getting her attention and your attention, and you guys are listening. And then there's this flow of communication. There's this flow of giving. There's this flow of exposing, shining the light on a few issues. This simple thing of having these cards that can be given out to these people, who are shut in during this COVID crisis. It's just beautiful. It's a revolving door of information, of communication, of giving. Are blessed.
It's a great place to be. I am blessed. I can't tell you how I look forward to getting up every morning, because I know, like you said, there is no typical day. I might be working on an arts grant that's going to bring art to the courthouse to help people with their mental health while they're in the courthouse. I might be in a meeting. I've got a meeting later with Adult Protective Services where they're going to talk about some really tough cases that they've had. So that's heavy, right? And that's going to be, those are often hard to hear. I work with a lot of agencies from Metro, the Regional Transit Authority, all the way to AMHA.
What's AMHA?
And the Akron Metropolitan Housing Authority. Okay. So Section 8 housing and
I see. Yeah.
And specialized housing. A lot of seniors live in those.
How is the funding for that? Are you guys getting them, or is the housing the Section 8? What did you call it? The
AMHA.
AMHA. Are they getting the funding that they need to do their job properly?
Wow. There's never enough funding in health and human services, but that does come from, a lot of that is federal funded from
exactly. And I ask because if I'm remembering correctly, the current administration actually cut quite a bit of federal funding to housing. And I haven't heard anything about the effects of that, but I can't imagine that it would be good.
No, I know locally that we had a few really good grants come through in the last couple of years, because we have some really great people in charge of those agencies. So that's been fairly positive. We've got some really good, caring people that are the boots on the ground, right? So what the federal does, you try to do your best and make your best of it. That's the other part that's great in my job. I might be meeting with a caseworker, or I might be meeting with the CEO, right?
Right.
I get to work both sides of that as well. And again, you meet the most amazing people, because they might be managing a senior high-rise building, or they might be the CEO who decides all the funding. And
is
they're really people who care.
Is Channelwood still
Channelwood,
Section 8 housing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still, and there's a lot of seniors, and I think developmentally disabled.
Yes.
That one's single story, I believe. That one's.
Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong thing. It's now I'm going way back to my childhood, but it's not quite downtown, but it's somewhere off of Route 8, almost downtown. Was it Channelwood, or it's a high rise building? Maybe it's not Channelwood. No, I might be.
Maybe I'm wrong, because I've got Channelwood as the one over by Canal Place and over toward the University of Akron, but I could have the wrong one in my head.
No, I'm just trying to dig up old memories, I guess, about what is what. I have been. I can put it to you this way: when I graduated in '87, I left for college. I came back for about a year, and then I went into the Marines. So my memories of where things are, and I was never familiar with Akron, because again, I grew up way out.
Sure.
But little places like
where they have the good where they have good chicken over in Norton. That's where I always go for my chicken.
Really?
Yes. They have Barberton chicken and Norton chicken. That's the best place.
That's news to me.
Cleveland Maslin Road.
Yeah. Okay.
Stop it.
Cleveland Maslin Road. Cleveland Maslin Road. In what intersection? Or the closest intersection?
It's not near an intersection. It's right in the middle. It was called the Village. And we used to go there. My whole family.
The Village. Now I got you. Yeah. Now I got you.
We went. It was called Milliches too, and people used to line up.
Yeah. Now I know. Now I know what you're talking about.
With the hot sauce, you gotta have the hot sauce.
Yeah. Oh, now I'm homesick. Let me ask you something, Lisa. In our conversations, the word blessed comes up quite a bit. Are you a religious woman?
I am, yeah.
You're a woman of faith.
Oh, absolutely.
How important is that to you? How does that affect your life and your line of work?
Well, I think it makes me grateful, and I think it makes me see everyone as my brother and sister. I've been again blessed to live here my whole life. So I feel like we're all kind of pulling together and trying to do something together. So trying to make sure that everybody is seen and heard and loved and feels as blessed, right? Trying to spread that as best as I can. It's hard right now to not get discouraged. So trying to make sure that I lift people up. I've messaged a few friends recently and just saying, I'm thinking about you. I'm praying for you.
A lot of people blow that. I was going to say a lot of people will, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but a lot of people will take that phrase when they hear that phrase, I'm praying for you. They kind of blow that off as, it's just something they said. But it can give comfort if it's not something that you just when you say it, it's because you mean it. It's because you'll do it.
Right.
I wasn't raised to just throw that word out there. I was raised, if you say it, then that's what you're going to do, and the person you say it to, the person you say it to will expect that you do it. And there is something uplifting about that. I don't know. I'm not afraid to bring this up. I wanted to bring this up. It's something I noticed almost right away in that first conversation with you, that word, I'm blessed, or I feel blessed, or this is a blessing. And to me, it's nice to hear that. Faith is uplifting. Faith is grounding at the same time as it's uplifting.
Oh,
it keeps you rooted in your sense of what is right and wrong. And it's just a beautiful thing. I just want to tell you, I appreciate hearing you say that. I feel your faith, in other words, if I can put it to you that way.
Sure. Yeah. And, it's not an easy thing to share a lot of times, because it depends on who you're talking to.
Sure.
So I tend to use that with people who I can pray for people without telling them I'm praying for them.
Absolutely.
And that happens
all the time.
So, right. So I usually only throw that out to people who I know will that I already am, and that they'll appreciate hearing it. You know, my husband was deployed to Operation Iraqi Freedom when my kids were really little, and he was a TV anchor at the time. And so I still have people who come up to me. Now, he was deployed, what would that have been? My son's 17 years ago, almost. Okay. 16 years ago, he would have been deployed. So my kids were 8, 5, and 1. And I still have people today who meet me and say, "You're Eric's wife. We prayed for you." And that's what they remember, is that when he was deployed, we were a face that represented the guardsmen that were sent. And so it gave them somebody to pray for. So I never forgotten.
Well, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to know that. Yeah, it's a good feeling to know that people are praying for you. I mean, some people may get offended at that, but I take it for what it is. You're praying for me, and thank you, and I need that, and I'll pray for you as well. It's just this. Right.
If we're just sending good thoughts at this point, that's it. I'll take it.
I'll take that. I'll take that as well.
If you just thought about me, pray. If you thought about me in a positive light, light candles, do whatever you do, just think positive.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow. Now you are an elected school board official as well.
I am.
How does
that's a challenge right now too?
How does one campaign to be on a school board? How do you make people, well, not make them, how do you convince people to vote for you?
That's complicated.
It's very complicated. I'm a good podcast host. I ask the difficult questions.
Yeah. We'll go back to that. I have a question for you though first.
Yeah.
Are there school boards in Norway? Is there such?
It's not in the same sense as it is back home. They're not elected people. But you have people who work at I guess it would be the city level. At the city level.
Okay.
For the city school district. It's not broken down exactly like that, but we can say that at the city level, there are people who are employees who work for the school system. So it's not like a school board. It's not like an elected type of thing. But then at the individual school level, you have a very structured parental involvement, almost like the PTA.
Oh, it's structured. Okay.
Almost like the PTA, where you have a leader, and then there's other parents who are involved, and they have their own meetings.
Do they take those to the people downtown? They take their concerns?
Not to the degree that I'm aware of it. They may do that, but mostly it's taken from that PTA, so to speak, from that parental group to the school, to the principal and assistant principal at that given school.
Gotcha.
So it's a little bit of a different system over here. The educational system, I think, is quite different here than it is back home. For example, kids over here don't get grades until 8th grade. There are no grades.
Wow.
Until 8th grade.
Okay.
And I would say that's the biggest difference, is that there's no grades, and there's just a totally different view on the whole grading system. I think kids
love that because I love math. I love showing mastery. I think showing mastery is a much better indicator of success than a grade.
It's more based on that. Although they have grades from 8th grade on, but it is more of a mastering evaluation than a straightforward grade.
I don't mind that terribly.
I don't either. I guess my biggest problem with the school system here is that there is, how do I put it? There's just a lack, and I'm not a freak for discipline. I'm not trying to limit what kids do, but there's just the pendulum has almost swung in the opposite direction to where kids get away with murder over here. There's just no, I don't know. It's too lax, if I can use that word.
I'll have to do some research and see what I can find out about that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to explain, but then again, there are some aspects of the Norwegian school system that I think are fantastic. I talk to family and friends back home in the States, and they talk about how things have been now during the COVID crisis. With homeschool, kids having to sit at home and whatnot, and how people who don't have good internet connections, their kids are suffering when it comes to their schoolwork at home. That's not an issue here in Norway. Everybody has high-speed internet. Everybody. I mean, it's really not an issue to not have that. So then they have very close and very direct contact with their teachers, so that our kids have actually been performing better. If I'm going to put our personal business out there, our kids have actually been doing better since they've been home from school. So it's different. It's different over here.
Yeah, we can go and we can talk a little bit about what we've done during COVID. But you asked me a specific question, so I'll go back to that. So campaigning. So my husband retired from the military. He was a TV anchor and he was in the National Guard. When he retired from the military, we were looking for another way to give back.
Yeah.
I was a stay-at-home mom for when my kids were little. I worked in the arts. I have a degree in secondary education that I didn't get to use traditionally. I taught in a lot of different ways. I taught theater. I taught young mothers and mentored them, but I never taught in a traditional classroom because I was blessed enough to stay home with my kids. Because I graduated during a recession too and couldn't find a job. So that was part of it also. But so we were looking for another way to give back, a new way. And that's why and how I ran for school board. So I spent a year studying the job because that's just who I am. So got to know the district that I grew up in. So it's where my parents, my grandparents went to school. So I have a lot of historical and institutional knowledge from the outside looking in. I wanted the inside part as well. So and then you run, and Akron never looked so big as it did when I ran citywide the first time. Talk about nooks and crannies. There's not many streets I haven't been on, or I'm not a big door-to-door kind of person. I'm much more of a I don't know. It was a little easier for me to meet people in smaller groups than door to door. I don't know. Personally, as a woman, I think it's hard to go up and knock on people's doors, but that's just I don't know.
Well, let me ask you this: how did you get in front of these various small groups? What kind of groups were they, and how did you get yourself in front of them?
I asked.
That's simple.
Yeah.
Ask and you'll get an answer.
Yeah. I mean, it helped that I was in the schools already with my kids because my kids were in the district. That made a bit of a difference. PTAs, city council. That's a really grassroots way to do it, right? Is council meetings and PTA meetings. I'm trying to think back to the first time I ran, which is tough.
So you asked
11 years.
So you ask these different groups for some time, and they give you that time, and you stand in front of them, and you talk to them about who you are, and you say what?
Talk about what things are important to me in the district, especially being a third generation person of the city, raising a fourth generation in the school district. I student taught in the school district, having that knowledge, but also being willing to listen and be their voice, because we do represent citywide. So we have 8 high schools, 9 if you count our alternative school. So we have to represent the whole city, not just where our kids go to school or not just where we live. Yeah. So making sure that people understood that I was capable of and willing to do that. And I've never forgotten where I came from, and that I wanted to be able to help be their voice. So
when you ran that first time, when was the first time you ran?
So the other thing that was a big push to me to run was, it was right after President Obama got elected, and I helped work on that campaign just a little bit. I did a few little things with that and kind of got the bug. So I ran in 2009 and was elected, I think, in 10. That sounds right. Maybe I ran in 80. I don't know.
So running that first time, then, what was your, I don't know, when I picture someone running for any kind of office, they always have that main cause, their number one focus. Did you have a main cause? Did you have a number one focus?
I don't remember having anything specific. Mm-hmm. I don't remember if there was anything. I mean, school funding is always an issue, so that we're always struggling at the local level because our state funding has been declared unconstitutional twice. So,
really? Why is that?
It was first declared unconstitutional when my now 25-year-old was about 3, because of the way we fund schools is not equitable. It's not done in a fair manner. Relies too much on property taxes. So areas with affluent property values have more money to spend than people who don't.
And that was actually
where I live.
That actually had a light shined on it, and it was found to be unconstitutional.
Yes.
Now, why can't that happen everywhere, and why can't something be done about that?
Now, wait. Just because it was declared unconstitutional, it still hasn't been fixed.
Okay, let's get into that.
Right. So it's been I think it's been over 20 years. I think it's going on 21 years, and they've gone to court twice with it, and both times it's been declared unconstitutional, and it still hasn't completely been fixed.
So does that mean that it's been somewhat fixed?
So it gets tweaked, and they'll try different things, and every governor that's come in since that has said that he's the education governor and says he's going to fix funding. So they have a platform, but it still hasn't been fixed.
So what is it that's...
We're trying. The closest we ever came was right before COVID. There was a great bill that was in the House, and it's all on hold right now. So
was it just strictly a funding thing that was addressed in that bill, or are there other things that? Okay, we're just talking about the funding.
It is because the funding formula makes no one can explain it except school treasurers. I can't explain it to you. There's a formula, and you're either on the formula, you are supplemented above the formula, or you're below the formula. The formula is supposed to fit everybody. It fits nobody. So how does something make sense if X plus Y doesn't equal anything?
What would be, and I don't want your opinion necessarily on this, because I don't want you to get in any trouble. We talked about there's not going to be any gotcha questions here, but so I don't necessarily want your opinion. But what are people saying out there as far as, what area in Akron is considered the affluent area? Because I know historically, when I was a kid, it was always the west side that had the most problems, that had the most underfunding of the school system. Is that still the case today?
So Akron funds, we have an equity policy, so it doesn't affect the city of Akron how our funding is placed out. In fact, it's done equitably, not equally. So we put a policy in a few years ago to make sure that happens. That means if you have kids who need more interventions, it's going to cost more to educate a kid who needs more interventions than someone who doesn't. So more money goes to the schools where that's needed. So when we're talking about the funding issue is not what you get if you live in Akron or what you give, but the fact that perhaps in a Solon or a Hudson, where the property values are so much higher, less has to come out, right? So the average house in Akron is worth somewhere, it's under 100,000. I don't know what it is right now, or right around 100,000. The housing market's been pretty decent up to COVID, so we'll see. Somewhere about $100,000 is the average.
Yeah.
So, but in Hudson, it's going to be more like 400,000 to 500,000.
That's all the rich people.
Yeah, or more into the $1 million. That's where those 11.5 million people live.
We used to get mad at those Hudson people because they were in the suburban league at that time in football.
Yes,
so we went out of our way to whoop their behinds, and we did every year in football. Hello, Hudson.
Right.
No, but okay. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So that's the funding that we're talking about, is that the part that's based on property taxes.
Okay.
And the levying on the local level makes it difficult. We will have to ask for a levy this year. Again, for the first time, we've cut and cut and cut. But we will have to ask for a levy this year, not just because of COVID, but because that's the cycle in Ohio. If you can go 5 to 7 years, you're great. We will have gone almost 9 years since our last one. So we've stretched it out as far as we possibly can.
When is the next time?
That's hard.
When is the next time you have to run? What is it? Is it a 1 year term, or is it? How long is it?
It's 4.
4 years. Okay.
It's 4 years.
So how far are you into the current term now?
I have, if I was to run again, which there's great debate in my household, because 12 years is a lot of public service. 12 years is not, public service to sneeze at. So I would be up not in November of 2020. I would be up in November of 2021.
Okay.
So next November. So I would have to run again.
And you're not sure that you'll do that?
I'm not sure. Well, I'm gonna see. Like I said, 12 years is a long time. My thing is, I want to leave it as good as I found it. And we were in some really fantastic stuff before COVID. Some really exciting changes in the. And so I ran this time again, and because I was so excited about it. I also want to find someone to replace myself, if that makes sense.
I see. Yeah.
I want someone who's passionate and that I can help along and maybe even help campaign for when I go to come off the board. And I haven't found that person yet.
Is it that's a time-consuming position to have? What do you get out of it? Because there's no financial reward there. So what do you get out of it? What is it that keeps you in it?
We make $4,000 a year. Which basically pays for my gas to drive around the city.
There's no financial. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. So I've got one really good story that actually is going to come to fruition this week. So I'll tell you that. Graduation time is fantastic. Teacher of the Year time is fantastic. Yeah. May is usually our reward for all the work. Yeah. May is when you get to see the benefits and the getting to go in and read to a kindergartner, which I know I can do as a volunteer, so I need to get over that. All those things, those little perks. When you get to make it work for somebody, right? When somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I don't understand this. Can you explain why the district does this?" Or "I can't get through to the right person. I don't know who to ask." And I do. I'm their connector. Yeah. Every time I can do. I love it. Last night, somebody had a question about something. They just tagged me on a post on Facebook, and I was able to give them an answer because I'd spent 45 minutes in an earlier conversation with our business affairs person. So I had that answer. This week, there's a young man who is graduating. We're doing kind of in person, kind of virtual ceremonies here. They do get to walk across the stage. They get to come with just their family. The family's the only one in the auditorium. They get to walk across the stage. They get their diploma handed to them. They get to go take pictures. And then we're going to splice them all together, for lack of a better term. I sound like it's from the 80s or something. Edit it all together with speeches and the like, and then we'll show them. So he is graduating. He was going to drop out. Oh. And a year ago, his dad reached out to me again, Facebook Messenger, which not a traditional route, right? And said, help me, my kid's going to drop out. I don't know what to do. And I was able to connect him with a program and the right person to talk to get him into it. And I got a Facebook message last week that said, we would like you to please be there to give Nick his diploma, even though it's a closed ceremony. We consider you to be part of our family. We want you to hand it to him.
Wow, how beautiful is that?
I cried and cried because I was so touched that not only is he graduating, but that they, that they remembered. Because there's lots of people along the way where, you gave that push or you got him into this or that, but this meant enough to this family that I get to give Nick his diploma. I've met Nick for all of 30 seconds. I don't know Nick. I've spent lots of time counseling Dad and talking Dad through and, following up with Dad and saying, have you heard yet? Have you heard yet? Kind of things, and pushing from above saying somebody needs to call. And, So, but yeah, there's little things like that.
Well, that's the beauty of public service. When things go well,
Yes.
they go very well, and you get that feeling, that rewarding feeling of having made a difference and of having done something that has changed someone's life for the better. That's the beauty of public service.
So, that one message, that would have got me through about 10 years. That's about 10 years worth of reward right there.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, there's lots of little things along the way. But like I said, it's been hard because May is usually our reward for the year, is to get to see all the scholarships and to see all the success. Yeah. So it's hard. It's hard to lose that this year.
Sure. Could you ever see yourself going that? Let's say you don't run for your position in the school board. Could you see yourself going into any other form of political or public service, or could you see yourself becoming more of a traditional politician, running for city office of some sort? I ask because
opportunities.
And I ask because you seem to be in the middle of a lot of what's happening.
Yeah.
So what's your answer to that then?
I love my counterparts on city council. I do. And I love the folks that work for the city. I had a chance to run for one of those positions and chose to stay where I was.
I see.
They make 10 times the money we do. They make 10 times the work.
What was the position you had a chance on city council, or?
I could have run for city council. Okay. Sure. Doesn't mean I would have made it, but I could have run. Yeah. I admire those folks. I have good relationships with almost all of them and with the mayor's office.
Who's the mayor of Akron?
Dan Horrigan.
Dan Horrigan. I'm trying to remember, see if I can remember that family name. Does he have any family members in politics there? No. Okay. Yeah.
He's been in for a while. Don Plasqualik was our mayor for almost 30 years.
A well-known name. So, yes, I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah. So Danny took over for him. I call him Danny. I should call him Dan or Mr. Mayor, but I grew up around the block from him over in North Hills. So to me, I've always called him Danny. So I always have to check myself in public. It's like, oops, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
I interviewed a cousin. I interviewed a cousin of mine for my podcast a couple weeks ago, and he has a doctorate, but he's a cousin of mine. But I haven't spoken to him in years. I could say in decades. Actually, it's been over 20 years since I last spoke to him. So it's like doctor. I'm like, no, I can't call you doctor, even though that's your title. You're my cousin. So
right.
No, I get it. Yeah. But Mr. Mayor, I guess, in official situations, Mr. Mayor, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I kind of have my fill between both jobs. If I want to, I could. Yeah. But we'll see. I'm not getting any younger either, so I don't know.
Well,
maybe state school board sometime or something. We'll see. I don't know.
State school board
is pretty.
That's centered in Columbus. Then how would that work?
Yeah. There's different sections of the state of Ohio. Some are appointed positions, some are elected.
I see.
You represent several counties. It just, from what I've seen of the job, they don't have the kind of influence that I would appreciate.
I see. I see.
I think that you need to have a little bit more that you can actually do with a position. If I can't help programs or change systems, I don't know that I want to.
You want to make a difference. You want to get you want to get down in the mud and make a difference. Yeah. I
do, but I'm also mindful of my role. I know that, in school board, our role is governance. I have to trust the people that are on top, that I actually do control their jobs to do their job, right?
Right.
School boards can get you in a lot of trouble if you start getting down in the weeds on picking coaches or picking teachers, especially in a big district like Akron. I don't know. Being in a small district would have its own issues, right? Because everybody knows everybody. Now, Akron's the biggest small town in the world. I swer it is. We all know each other somehow.
How many people are in Akron? How many citizens are there?
Oh, gosh. I think it's not quite 200,000.
Okay.
We have 21,000 students.
So it is a big, small town then, yeah.
It is, yeah. I mean, if you and I sat here, we could figure out more than just your family that I know, I'm sure.
Oh, probably, right? Absolutely.
Probably dozens. You learn real fast in Akron that you don't talk bad about somebody till you know them really well. It's going to be somebody's cousin or brother or, next door neighbor.
Yeah.
So you better not be talking bad.
Gosh, I get homesick. Even though I'm a Norton guy, that whole Akron area. My mom lives in Springfield Township now. My daughter and grandkids are in Kent. My sister is in Akron. Shout out to my sister Meredith. Hello. So I have my ear to the ground. I hear what's going on there, and I'm constantly homesick. I'm so homesick for that old back home feeling. There's something about the people back there. Everybody is so grounded, so straightforward and real. I don't know how to put words on that, but as an outsider looking in, there's just so many good people in the Akron, Kent, and out in the suburbs in that area. It's just good people there.
It is very special. So my judge isn't from here. She's originally from, she moved around a lot, but she considers Louisville her home, in Kentucky. Yeah. And she tells me that we've had a lot of conversations about how collaborative Akron is and how if you need help with something or you want to get something done, all you have to do is pick up the phone and people jump in. She always teases me and says that there's something special in the water here, that there's a reason AA started here, that there's a reason that some of the great things that have come out of Akron, kindergarten was created in Akron, Ohio. Yeah. So if you think about some of the things that are helping of others, a lot of them come out of this region.
Salt of the earth people. It's just so many down to the earth good people. Just salt of the earth, literally.
Yeah.
If you lick the arm of someone from Summit County in Northeast Ohio, it's going to taste salty. Salt of the earth.
We do not recommend that during COVID.
But don't do it. Don't do it now during COVID.
No, please do not. Oh my gosh.
But
so you mentioned a little bit earlier about connectivity. One of the things that in Akron Public Schools we were able to do is we already had Chromebooks in the hands of every Akron Public School student pre-K through 12th grade.
Chromebooks. What is
the little
that?
bitties? Chromebook it's like a laptop, only it's basically an internet machine. That's what I'm on, actually.
Wow. Okay.
And they all have one to do their schoolwork and take their testing on. And the little ones only used them at school, so they didn't have them at home as well. They didn't have them all signed out like the big kids did. But we were way more ready than our urban counterparts across the state because of that. And so we got to spend our time just checking connectivity. I know at one point we purchased about 800 hotspots to add to Chromebooks because kids didn't have them. And we've done some more since we've had a lot of donations from people doing that during this time. But we're in our last week of school this week, and we will have finished with 21,000 students, all but somewhere about 500 to 800 have logged on and done online learning at some level. Now, some of them have killed it, right? They've just done a great job. And some of them, it's been intermittent, and we need to work on that for next fall. But
I see. Are there any plans being made just in case there's a new flowering of this COVID virus and the schools have to be closed when the next school year comes around? Is there any preparation being made or not?
So the governor just announced yesterday that all plans are that we are going to open in the fall. So I'm actually on a couple meetings, one tonight from 6 to 7:30 that's statewide on what all the districts are doing in the Northeast area. And then tomorrow afternoon, I'm on with one. We've formed committees that are looking at every aspect of your day.
Okay. Yeah.
For students, including how they get to school, what that looks like, what's going to happen if we do have a positive case. We're operating on the fact that it's not going away, let alone.
Yeah.
And so we'll have to have ways that we can shut down and start back up and shut down and start back up.
Okay.
So that's kind of the plan that we're going under right now. It's going to be tough.
It's going to be a challenge. It's been a challenge already. I can't see. You can't cover every contingency. You can't look into the future and see exactly. So it's going to demand a little bit of flexibility, and it's going to demand a lot of patience from people, because I think no matter how much we plan, if it gets bad again, there's going to be a lot of unexpected issues that are going to pop up.
True. And I've been telling people who've been reaching out to me and saying, what's this going to look like and what's that going to look like? And I said, I don't know. I've got a committee on that. I'm going to get an update, blah, 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 and I tell them all that. But I've been really honest, and I've said, I can guarantee that you're going to have 3 or 4 things that you're going to go, okay, I understand that. And I said, you're going to have one thing that you hate. You are just going to hate it. Yeah. And I'm sorry, but that's,
well, that's good that you're preparing them for that. Not everybody can be satisfied with everything. And it says a lot about your commitment that you're willing to be so forthcoming and just say that straight up. Yeah.
Right, because I hate it. It's not like I'm making a tough decision. I'm making, a really tough choice on whether we keep this or delay that. It doesn't mean that that because I've made that decision that I like it. It means that it was there. I was between a rock and a hard place and had to choose. Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? This has nothing to do with anything that we've been talking about. Now, my sister, who she constantly teases me because she says, now I've been here in Norway for 20 years. Now here at home, I speak English with my wife and our kids. But when I'm out working, I'm out in the public, I speak Norwegian. And in that process of learning Norwegian and speaking it so often, my sister says that I now speak English with an accent. Have you heard me say? Now this is for my sister Meredith's benefit. I'm asking someone who is totally independent, you're not biased in any way. I'll ask you, do I say anything? Have I said anything so far with any kind of an accent?
I do not think you have an accent at all. I think that you have some phrasing that's slightly different. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does.
But,
yeah.
Okay, just some phrases, just how you cut them off or how you do things that I can tell that you've been somewhere, but that doesn't mean,
I've been somewhere.
It's not. But right,
John
right.
Allen, he's been somewhere. I like that.
He's been somewhere.
That's a catchphrase right there. Okay, Meredith, you heard that.
Those people who see, I would be terrible because I'm one of those people who, if I go south for a vacation, I start picking things up. And I was an actor for a while, and so I love accents. I adore them. It's like one of my favorite things. I love trying to guess what someone's is, and I love that. So if I go somewhere, I start to do that. So
I found out that I am that way. The first time we came home after we had moved here, this was in 2005. And we flew into Washington, D.C., and then from there, no, this wasn't in 2005. This was in 2000 and, when was that? Yeah, I don't know, whenever it was. And we flew into Washington, D.C., and we drove a little bit south, and we hit the Blue Ridge Parkway and then up to Ohio. And as we stopped and would interact with the local people, all of a sudden I noticed I was picking up a little twang.
Little twang.
It went from you guys to y'all, and little
right,
and little things like that.
In a completely respectful homage, not in a make it fun. You just pick it up.
And because at that point I had been gone and in Norway for some years, 3 or 4 years, and then to all of a sudden be back there and hear my own language again, I just started mimicking what I was hearing. So all of a sudden I was talking, as we moved up north on I-77, I started changing, and all of a sudden I was back to the Ohio accent.
That's fun. So is your family all bilingual too?
Oh yeah. My wife, when we first came here, in order for me to learn Norwegian, we figured, okay, I'll just speak Norwegian with my wife. But that was weird because when we met, it was when I was living in Chicago. So we met speaking English, and it was just weird to start speaking a different language with her. Okay. So, and also she started to lose her English skills when we were speaking just Norwegian. So for her benefit and mine, so I can just be myself when I'm at home, she and I speak only English together. And then with our 2 kids, from day one, I have spoken only English with them and demanded that they answer me in English. And they speak Norwegian with my wife. So everybody in this house is bilingual. And then,
that's fantastic.
Yeah. And then at the dinner table, when we're all there, the kids have to speak only English, even if they're speaking with their mother. And that's so that they can, they need to be able to call home to grandma and their cousins and whoever to, in order to be able to converse. So that was the idea of them having to speak English to me. If they try to speak Norwegian to me, I ignore them.
That'll get him.
And Father of the Year, ignoring his children. So,
no, I love it. I think it's great. I wish that we were. It's one of the things. I was fortunate enough. I'm trying to think if Juliana got to go when we went. We went to Europe with Miller South with my youngest son. And we got to spend some time there, and our tour guide spoke 7 languages. And
what country were you in?
It was just, we went to the first time. I got to go twice. I had never been to Europe in my life until I went with my then 10-year-old son. We went to the former Czech Republic. Mm-hmm. We went to Prague. We went to Germany. Mm-hmm. The second time we went to Austria and Germany.
Norway is very different.
Where else? And Bratislava, which was beautiful. Loved it. Yeah. But I haven't. That's on my bucket list because we have family that is from the northern parts of Europe, Sweden, Norway, Wales, and that up part, yeah.
Well, Norway is very different. When people say they've been to Europe, or when they refer to Norway as Europe, I always tell them, Europe is the continent, but the country of Norway is so different. It stands apart, language-wise, nature-wise. The demeanor of the people is different. If you ever get a chance to come to Norway, you just have to do it.
I would love to.
I'll put it to you this way. I've been here for almost 20 years, and I'm still fascinated just about every time I walk out the door. Yeah.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah. I think that you learn so much from travel, too. I think that...
Well, it opens your eyes.
And having those languages. Yeah.
It opens your eyes because things are...
more people should.
Yeah, it gives you a new reference point, literally a new reference point. Things are different depending on where you are in the world, and it just opens your eyes to a whole new way of thought, a whole new way of living. I'm a better person for it.
It's fascinating to travel here, too. Yeah, it's fascinating to travel here, too.
Sure.
To get out of your own bubble.
Sure.
I was fortunate enough. My parents, it was very important to them, and I'd been to 46 states by the time I was 18 by car and motorhome. So not by flying. I never flew till I was 18.
That's the way to do it, is in a motorhome, and then you can actually be there among the people and see the sights and feel the difference depending on where you are. That's exciting. That's exciting.
Yeah, you stop and you get out and you smell new smells and you see new sights, and it is easy to sit in Summit County and our little bastion of tolerance and things like that, and feel like that's how the United States is. And so times hard when we don't have that. It's good to not just have the news be your wake up call, to have actually been some of those places and met people who think differently than you, but are still good people. And then to see that some of them don't necessarily have, they may have some more alternative ideas.
Well, I wish more people thought like you do, because I believe that those experiences bring people to it causes people to value dialogue and discussion, and that's missing in our country. It's missing that desire for dialogue and discussion is missing in the United States. I miss it. It's pretty sad the way things are now, the way things are so divided. And I think it's a case of a shutdown of communication, a shutdown of dialogue and discussion.
Is it hard to watch what's happening right now and not?
It's soul crushing.
Is it hard to be there?
It's soul crushing. Yes, it's very hard. I can't explain it. It's very difficult to find the words for it, but it's almost as if I am more aware of my Americanism since I've been gone. It's almost like I'm more aware of my blackness since I've been gone. It does something to me to be over here and see the conflict and the tragedy and all of these bad things that are happening there. It's almost like you get this desire to jump in it and try to fix it. and I think that's something that is exclusive to expats. We're a few Americans who live here in Norway, and pretty much universally across us, we all feel that. It's just this weird aching to be there and try and contribute to making things better. And that's regardless of political affiliation. So it's rough. It's rough watching that. I'm sure it's even rougher for people who are... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I can't imagine what all the emotions that must give you. I mean, you must fear for your family. You must mourn for... there have been a few comments that have been made about how this is a laughing stock or that is a laughing stock. And, to watch our country brought to where we are, there's so much good happening too that I hope that some of that gets out.
Yeah, it does.
So much, people stopping to going back the next day to make sure all the broken glass is cleaned up and helping people reset their businesses, because those weren't the people who were protesting. That was a different group of people. And seeing how in almost universally across the country, how the protests are biracial and have so many different walks of life coming together now is the good part. So I hope that's seen as well as the looting and the broken glass.
Well, I tell you, to me, it's a beautiful thing when I look at some news coverage of places like, in Minneapolis, where all of this started, and I look in the crowd of people protesting, and it's actually a majority of white people. And I think it seems to me that this time it's different. And when I say different, I mean that in a good way. There seems to be an awakening among white Americans that they are now being more aware of the plight of Black Americans when it comes to the unequal application of the law. They seem to be very involved this time in a way that I haven't seen before. When I can look out in a crowd of protesters and it's a majority white in some of these cities, it's fascinating. They were showing people who were protesting in New York City. In New York City it's a literal melting pot, but a majority of the protesters there, the majority of the people marching, were white, and I think that's a beautiful thing. There's more and more white people who are standing up and becoming allies, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And I hope it lasts, and I hope it leads to some changes.
I hope you're right too. I think that I think this generation is not just keenly aware of our differences and celebrates them, but they also celebrate what makes us human.
Yes. Yeah.
I look at my kids, and especially my youngest, and his friendships and his relationships, and really being able to articulate, he does so well, about how it's okay to celebrate all those differences as well as our likeness.
Yeah.
And seeing past nonsense. And I was raised in a policeman household. My dad is a retired police officer. My brother-in-law is a police officer. And I was with them this weekend, and seeing their pain over this too, of just, it's so wrong and it's got to change. And,
and
being able to hear that.
I've had like a mission. I guess I have several missions, but one mission is to try and show people that, especially over here in Norway, that just because a person is a police officer, that doesn't mean that they fall into that category of civil rights abuser. I'm a former cop myself, and I don't, I'm the furthest thing from a civil rights abuser. So I'm trying to use my background, my story, my platform to show people that we can still fix this. We are not so divided that it can't be fixed.
Right.
I don't know. We'll have to see what happens, but I have a feeling, even though things look bad, even though there's a lot of chaos and people are hurting and there's a lot of division, I feel like something is different this time, and it's going to lead to some significant changes. I just have that feeling. I might be wrong.
I do hope so. I do hope so, and I hope that an abuse of the military doesn't happen. Some of the call-ups are a little scary. It's scary as an Army mom, as an Army wife.
I hope don't. Yeah, but I hope that Congress can step in with their oversight powers and stop some of that foolishness. I don't want this episode to turn into a bashing of that of our president. But good Lord, what the heck is going on with his call to action that the military is going to start busting skulls? That's and I just hope Congress
started on on the abuse of people of faith and the things that have happened in the last 24 hours have just been
It's been jaw dropping.
nauseating.
It's been nauseating and
Yeah.
jaw dropping. But I tell you, hats off to the bishop, the lady who stood up and said exactly what she and that church, that faith, think about that situation. Hats off to her.
Well, and the Catholic Church came out against it too.
Did they? Okay, I didn't see that. I didn't see that.
They did.
Good,
The Archbishop for that area came out against it as well. So that was nice to see.
Good.
I did get an alert that the Secretary of Defense is breaking with the president's view as well, which I'm happy to hear. My husband
shocked.
is.
I'm surprised.
Yes, I'm a little shocked. I can't wait to hear exactly what he said. My husband right now has a volunteer position with the U.S. military as a CASA. He's a civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army. And I was giving him a bit of a hard time yesterday. I was like, I don't know how, but I'm not posting this because of your job. That's the only reason I am not posting this, because of your volunteer position, but I'm not happy.
Well, I tell you, I'm not happy either. And I said to you, I didn't want this episode, and I stress this episode, to turn into a bashing of the administration. But I have a previous episode where I was very clear about how I feel, and I have some guests and some. Yeah, check it out, episode 28. Anybody listening, check it out, episode 28. If you want to know exactly how I feel, and if you want to be a part of my call to action, there's a hashtag, Be My White Ally. Listen, check out that hashtag and listen to that episode 28. My whole
Send myself a message.
Yeah, and just to sum up that episode, basically I'm saying that the best thing that can happen is that we have white people as allies in this cause, and that will bring unity, that will bring one force that will lead to change. Let's not forget why all the protesting started. So basically that episode is my call to action to do something about it. But the things that are happening at the executive level, I just hope that the powers of oversight that Congress possesses come into play when they are most needed. Because to me, it's a frightening thing, this rhetoric about using the military on American soil to do the things that the executive branch wants done. It's frightening.
Yeah, it is. And it's unconstitutional, and it's...
But then, exactly, and that's a good point. It is unconstitutional. So maybe when it comes down to it, everybody should just relax and take his rhetoric for what it is. Blowhard rhetoric. Maybe it's an empty threat and nothing will come of it. There's also that.
Well, if the silence of the of Congress, of the Senate in particular, is deafening.
It is.
I think
it is.
As far as of his own party, who are the people who can check.
Yeah.
So that part is difficult to tolerate. And so there were elections yesterday in, I think, 7 states. Maybe it was 7 states yesterday.
Yeah. Who's that crazy guy up in oh man, what state was that? He was the guy that
it was Missouri, I think. Wasn't it the Missouri guy? Is that the one you're talking about? Who supported the white supremacists?
Yes, yeah, him. He lost, so he's gone.
Yes, he's gone.
So there is hope. Yeah. There is some sanity in the world. Yeah.
Maybe it was Iowa. I think it was
Iowa. Thank you, Iowa. And I've forgotten the guy's name, but yeah, it was Iowa, of course. Yeah, and I've forgotten his name, but he's gone, and thank the good Lord for that, because
yes.
I don't know. I think that's a sign of things to come. I think people's eyes are open, and people are like, oh, okay, this is what this political party has been leading us towards. I don't want to be a part of this. And I think now people are starting to act accordingly. I don't know. I'm trying to use my platform. That's not what this episode was about, but again, we're talking about it. So we're talking about it, but I want to use my...
How can you not talk about what's going on right now? You can't talk about it.
I just want everyone who has a platform to use it to hopefully open the doors to dialogue. And I don't think that has to do with Democrat or Republican. I think it has to do with decency. Let's just do what is decent, I don't care what someone's political affiliation is. I just want people to show some character. I want people to show some compassion and some decency. That's what I want. So I use my platform to advocate for that.
I think absolutely. And I think that there's no place in the highest office in the land for name calling and
it's totally unbecoming. It
words,
is
no, and words that are substitute words for racial slurs, like saying the word. To me, the word thug is a
D.L. Hughley said it. D.L. Hughley said it very clearly. He said these white people saying thugs is just a way for them to get away with saying the N-word. They've just replaced it with that. Right. And it's and you'll see when he tweets about it, when the president tweets about it, he always puts it in capital letters. It's always
all caps.
It's always in conjunction with some phrasing that it's a dog whistle. And I don't think that is becoming of our leader in the slightest bit. It has nothing to do with political affiliation. It's just unbecoming for the office of the president.
Absolutely, I agree. And it hurts. It hurts, and I have several friends. I've got a few that I thought of this morning who are on my heart, who I need to send some messages to, just to say, hey, I'm hurting. You must really be hurting. I'm here if you just want to vent, or if you just know that I'm here, just because it's heavy.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's just heavy.
Well,
so, we have COVID's not there. It's just, if it's not that burden, it's all the things that are going on and all the tension. So,
as if COVID wasn't enough. Now we have this.
Right? It was enough. Thanks, 2020.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, 2020. Oh, boy. Well, listen, Lisa Mansfield, I tell you, this has been for me, a very fruitful conversation. I like talking with people who are out there making a difference in whatever way they can. And, as a school board member, of course, you're doing what you can for kids. That's a beautiful thing. Working in the probate court and being the a community outreach specialist, it's important work. It's leading to change in people's. You're changing people's lives. And hats off to you. So. Well, you are, and
they changed mine. So,
well, again, as I described earlier, it's a revolving door of communication, of giving, of dialogue, of life-changing episodes. Absolutely. And hats off to the judge as well. Well, I'd like to talk to her at some point.
Yeah, she's fascinating. Yeah.
But hats off to you. I think you're doing some very important and beautiful work.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure to get to know you through this. And now I have a new podcast to listen to, which is where this all started.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
When I'm out in my garden, I can listen to the podcast.
Yeah, out there with those birds. I tell you, I just love hearing those birds. Of course, we have birds here in Norway, but it's different. So when I hear those birds, I can't remember what species they are, but I recognize that bird song.
Sounds like home.
That is music from home. So
awesome. I love that. Well, it's been my pleasure.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. You take care.
And thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. Bye, everybody.
I'm coming home.